Welcome to this live masterclass, live stream workshop. First time on YouTube, woo! On the live platform. So it could be recipe for disaster, but maybe I'm just moving into the 21st century. So on this live masterclass, we're going to talk about operator to owner. We're going to talk about the difference between somebody running a business and somebody owning a business. You know, ultimately, I think that one of my mentors says that operators get tired and business owners get rich. And I think that's true. I think that if you get it right, business owners are the ones that get paid. If you're just operating the business, yeah, you might be both, of course. You own the business, but you're also really running in the business. You're really doing a job. It's really shareholders that make money, not people running companies. Okay, so the first question is, what's the difference? What is the difference between an operator and being an owner? Well, an owner is a shareholder. They get paid via two ways. They get paid because of capital appreciation of the price of their shares. If you're on the stock market and the company becomes more valuable, but really they get paid in the form of dividends because the company is profitable enough that it's able to reward the shareholders, the investors, and say thank you. Say thank you for your investment. Thank you for taking the risk on our company. So really, the question is, how do the shareholders, how do the investors help the management create a more valuable company? I mean, think about it. Really, all we're talking about is increasing profitability, and there's only really two ways to do that: drive revenue or decrease expenses proportionally, or make those earnings, those profits, more predictable, reliable, and sustainable. Right? I mean, that's the definition of a company's value. You look on the stock market, you look at it's called the PE ratio. It's the price of the shares versus the as a ratio of the earnings of the company. So if Apple's got a PE ratio of 18, it means the company's worth 18 times its annual profits. But here's the distinction. For most small business owners, they're both the operator and the owner. It's a completely different mindset. And a lot of us get stuck. We get stuck permanently really as an operator. Because the fact is you need to do both. The business does need to operate. But if you get stuck in that tactical low-level thinking, you're not thinking strategically, which means ultimately the company gets limited and it doesn't grow. Here's the point. Write this down. You cannot become an owner unless you think like one. What do I mean by that? What I mean is you're not really going to have... You can have two companies that have, say, got $500,000 in revenue. One of them's making no profit or even losing money, i.e. the owner's funding it, staying in operation, and the other's making 200 grand net. You can have a business that's doing 2 million making no profit or making 700,000-800,000 net. Right? Whilst the business needs to get run well, tactically, really it's strategic. And the difference between owners and operators is the strategic thinking. One of my mentors, Jay Abraham, puts it this way. You get paid to think. You get paid to think. So hopefully if I do my job right on this webinar and keep your questions coming in, let me lean over. Hello, closing the deal, so much interest in the business, but not much closing the deal. How to have an IPO? Great, that'd be interesting questions. Yeah, keep them coming in. I'll try and work them in. In fact, let me just take on the IPO question now. How do you have an IPO? First of all, what is an IPO? It's an initial public offering. So one of my companies I sold to a listed company. So in effect, by proxy, if you will, it became listed. But what allows companies to have an IPO? Float on the stock market? Well, really, you need to have a certain size and weight. You know, the reason why people want an IPO is companies that are floated on the stock market typically get a much higher valuation. i.e. the company's worth more, therefore you as the owner of the shares, it's a way of getting an exit, right? Tactically, the process is pretty long and arduous to get listed on the stock market. But really, in order to do that, you can follow the tactics, you can get the right lawyers and the people that do all the process and the due diligence to do that. But really, You basically need a company of enough size and stature, right? You need a profitable company. You're going to need to get on AIM, the alternate investment market, like a minor market in the UK. You're going to need, and this can be debated, but you're going to need a few million of revenue, and you're going to need upwards of 500,000 of EBIT, so that's profit before tax. But really, what causes that? Like, that's tactical stuff. Really, you need a company that's robust enough to be consistently profitable, which most small business owners aren't, right? And that's why we're here. That's the power of Mastermind. In other words, getting around other business owners, getting around people that have successfully scaled. The first 2 times I tried to scale from 7 to 8 figures, it was horrendous. I turned back. I failed to do it because you can make a good living and even have a nice life with a company that's doing 7 figures, and you can even, I've had companies that have been not dependent upon me. You know, of the I think I own 5 businesses right now. I say I think because it changes. In the last year I've bought a couple of companies and I've sold one very recently. But the only business that I work in is this one, right? I like working and training other business owners. But if you looked at my list of income sources from my personal tax return last year, you'd see that this business was number 5, right? Because whilst I enjoy it and while it makes great money, ultimately, businesses, my experience is, you make a lot more money if you can just be the operator. If you can figure out, so you're focused strategically rather than tactically, 80% of your time for most small business owners is spent caught up doing the detailed stuff. The tricky part is, how do you transition? It's much easier to run a company that's got 5 million in revenue than 500,000. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Why? Because you've got more revenue, you've got more staff, you've got more infrastructure, you've got more revenue streams, you've got more products. The problem, the pain in the backside, is the transition. It's relatively easy to keep a small business and go, yeah, great, I've got 500,000 in revenue, I've got, I'm making 6 figures net. Great, okay, you can do that and you can stay at that level. But actually, it's trying to do the transition is what kills a lot of businesses. In fact, more businesses go broke trying to grow than staying put. Why is that? And it's because they're doing something they haven't tried before. Like we're using a new platform today for delivering this kind of live masterclass, which means it's inherently more likely to go wrong because we've not tried it before, right? But it doesn't mean you don't need to innovate. You just better be sure you know what you're doing. And if you haven't done it before, how do you get around that? Well, you get around other people who have been there before. Just looking over the questions. Yeah, so what do you mean? The question that I haven't answered yet is closing the deal. So much interest in the business, but not closing the deal. And the person didn't leave the name, I don't believe. So clarify what you mean. Do you mean trying to exit the company, or are you on about that you're getting a lot of sales inquiries, but you're not getting the business as an issue for scaling up? Let us know, and I'll make sure that I answer that live. So let's talk about some of the problems. Let's talk about 3 particular problems that are keeping you stuck on the 6-figure hamster wheel. In fact, side note, I'd love to know, again, because technically we haven't cracked it all yet. I don't know how many of you are on now. I know we had however many 100 registered for the call, but I don't know how many are live on the line. Let us know. What's your current revenue size? What size is your business? Tell us your revenue the last 12 months. Tell us your okay, great. Tell us your revenue the last 12 months. Tell us how many staff you've got. Okay, good. I can see the comments coming in because I'll try and tailor all the relevant points to you. In fact, if you tell us what type of business you're in, what do you do? Okay, tell us your company name. Get a free plug. We're live on YouTube. Loads of people listening in. Let us know, and I'll do my best to work it around you. Okay. So, let's talk about this. First issue that keeps people stuck is they think in a linear fashion. They're thinking in 10% increments. How do we have sales go up just a little bit? How do we... and they just try and inch their way forward. But the reason why that keeps you stuck is normally, if you think about it tactically, The way that somebody does 10% better, you do what you're already doing. But you just do it at a slightly better. So consequently, that can be a way to grow a company. I'm not trying to scoff at that, but it typically keeps you locked into how do we improve our sales process a little bit? How do we improve our marketing a little bit? Which is really manager-esque in the nature of its thinking. It rarely creates significant scalability. So the solution is thinking big. It's how do you think big? The mindset of an owner is one of saying, okay, great, I'm not that excited by moving revenue from 500,000 to 550,000. Now, if on 500,000 revenue we're making 100,000 of profit, making 550, we might make 130 in profit. Okay, well good, an extra £30,000 a year or £2,500 a month to you as the sole shareholder is pretty nice. But if you truly have ambition long-term for a big exit, or if you just want to have a company that has a real big impact on the world and you want 5 million, 10 million in revenue, typically you're not going to get there by just incrementally inching it. There needs to be a much better level of thinking. So here's a good question that came from, I believe it was Peter Thiel, an infamous tech investor. Okay, good. Seen the team sizes coming in. Okay, okay, great. 8 members of staff, 4 members of staff. Okay, good. Innovation. So the question from Peter is, how do you achieve your 10-year goal in the next 6 months? So if your 10-year vision is, oh, I want to have my company go from 500,000 to 10 million. That's where I want to be. I want to be at 10 million in revenue, banging down 3 million in profit, and I want to be in across Europe. I want to be in 5 countries across Europe, right? Let's say that's your goal. Well, that question is where you need to sit, because yeah, you might be able to inch it over time, but actually true shareholders, the strategic thinking is what has to happen to get that scalability. It's a complete different mindset shift. If you don't do that, you're not going to get the result, right? So where do you need to think bigger? Where do you need to have your thinking challenged? Again, we're back to getting around people that have already been there, done that have already successfully scaled. It's small-minded thinking when people just get caught up on, oh, how do you do this ad on YouTube or Facebook? Or, oh, what should the headline be for my landing page? Or, oh, what software are you using for that? I'm not saying there's not value in that, but it's very tactical. If you get around people that have had significant scalability, or if you desire to exit your company, I've not yet done a 8-figure exit, but I've sold 2 companies for 7-figure sums in the last 5 years or so. The thinking is very different strategically. They don't get caught up on the nitty-gritty detail. They're much more innovative. Okay, so where do you need to think bigger? And if you say, well, I don't know how to think bigger, I've got problems thinking. I know how to think big, I just don't know how to get it done. That's what we're going to talk about. Okay, problem number 2. Problem number 2 is a lot of small business owners, tactically, they get caught up and they get stuck on the 6-figure hamster wheel because they're trying to get more with less. They're trying to grow the business, but they're trying to not change anything. Okay, or do less. And the solution is you've got to be innovation obsessed. Okay, the fact is you cannot stay still. You cannot just inch your business forward because innovations are going to wipe you out. Right? You know, whether you want to use the beaten to death but doesn't make it not true, Uber example of how it's revolutionized the taxi industry, or whether you want to talk about another beaten to death cliche example of how Airbnb is causing radical shift around in the hotel industry. The fact is you need to have your finger on the pulse. It's not always about just doing crazy new things because it might change everything, but you need to be thinking bigger. You need to be tapped in with innovation. And again, I keep coming back to it, mainly because I still don't know what I'm doing. But today we're testing a different platform. Why? Because the old platform that we used to use for live things like this, live events like this, we're feeling it's become default. And we're seeing people got great success and get exposed to more people by you being able to see my face, you being able to talk to me live while seeing my face, whilst having still have the slide deck. And I think you have to do that, otherwise you get left behind. Right? At one point, it was almost 10 years ago now, 8, 9 years ago, I had a business that to many people would be utopia. Okay, it had about $500,000 revenue. It was making a low 6-figure profit level. It had one part-time admin member of staff. Okay, I touched in on that business a handful of hours a week. It was the utopian dream of the internet marketer. I had a push-button system where leads came in automatically. It was all handled automatically. In fact, that company, I won an international marketing competition from Infusionsoft. I won their Ultimate Marketer competition for that business in 2008, 2009 for how automated I made this company. Right? It was, wow, I have to do minimal work and it's just printing out money. You know, 8, 10 grand a month of profit. But within 6 months of me winning that award, that company was dead. Why did that company die? Right? Why did that company die? And it died because there was innovation, there was a change, there was the Google slap. And all of a sudden our lead flow died up. So the question is, what are the new innovations? What are the new technological advances that could change everything? Which means if you get it right, you get massive upside. But if you're late, or you get it wrong, could destroy your company. Okay, if you look at people that have built empires, you know, one of my mentors who's a billionaire, if you heard some of the questions that he asks or when he mentors me, you'd say, God, that guy's kind of paranoid. And whilst I would agree, I would call it productive paranoia. The point is, how do you be so tapped in that if you're building and scaling a successful company? Warren Buffett says there's 2 rules to investing. Rule number 1, in fact, I'm curious, do any of you know Warren Buffett's 2 rules of investing? I think any man that's built a net worth, become the richest man on the planet and built a net worth of over 60 billion after giving, I think he's given 50 billion away now. Great, we're going to get to that, Greg. So Greg's asking a question about growth with limited working capital. Okay, great. There's questions about more sales inquiries, about recruitment, IPO, and growth. Okay, good. So we're going to cover these. And thank you, Greg. Keep the questions coming. I've now lost my track of thought. Oh yeah, so I think it's worth listening to Warren Buffett. What are his 2 rules? Rule number 1, don't lose money. And rule number 2, refer to rule number 1. Right? It's saying, good, you've got to be innovation obsessed, not to take risks, but to avoid things that might damage your business. Okay, so you've got to be innovation obsessed. What's the third thing that kind of keeps you stuck? I think the issue, and I said I was going to give you proof of how you're limiting your business, why you're the person that's ultimately got the company to wherever it is today, $500,000 in revenue. There's something on here, 1.2 million in revenue, something at 200,000 in revenue. Okay, let us know your revenue figures. It's interesting for us to know. You're the one that's got it to that level, but you're also the one that's keeping it at that level. Think about this. Think of somebody that you really admire and respect in business. Okay, think of somebody. Let me just take a drink. I'm really a bit paranoid because even though I can see you asking the question on chat, I feel like I'm kind of talking to myself. And apparently, so my team tell me I like to talk, but it's a little bit disconcerting when I can't see your face. But if you think about somebody that you're really respecting and admire in business, okay? So who's that for you? Okay, so I've got some answers coming in. Yeah, so one that's come in is Richard Branson, okay? But whether he said Richard Branson or whether he said Elon Musk or whether he said somebody personally that you know, Steve Bennett, who founded Gemporia, good. Here's a question for you. If they had been able to step into your body 12 months ago So they didn't have their name or their fortune, but or their contacts, but they could run your company for the last 12 months. Would they have achieved better results from you? Better results than you achieved running the company? Just think about that. Let me know what you think. Like, that's right. Good. Would Richard Branson have achieved better results than you if he'd run your company, even if he didn't have his name, his fortune, or his contacts? For most people, the answer to that question is yes. But the corollary is why? Why would he or she have done a better job and produced better results? Okay, I'm just looking at the answers. All right, good. And ultimately, it boils down to mindset or skill set. Okay, they go, well, he thinks bigger. Okay, good. Well, you know, he would set up better partnerships, or he would raise a lot of money from the bank, or he would just go for it. But if you think about that, why would he or she just go for it? And the answer is because they've got confidence enough. Why? Because they've done it before. Why? Because they've got skills. They know how to raise money. They know how to do X, Y, Z. So what that means for you is you're the person that's got the company to its level, but you being a control freak prevents it from moving forward, right? Because if you think about it, there's only two forms of leverage. Okay, only two forms of leverage. In fact, just for fun, just to kind of keep you dialed in, because I'm thriving on your comments here, guys, is there's only two forms of leverage. What are they? How can you create leverage? In other words, grow without it being your hustle. Without it being your hustle. Like, how can you leverage things? Okay, good. All right, yeah, some people got them right. Some of them are interesting subsets. Yeah, I get other people's money, but can be leveraged. But really, if you got somebody else's money, whoever said that, right? If you got somebody's, if you got somebody else's money, how would that allow you to get leverage? Money in a bank account doesn't create leverage. It's what you do with that money. Well, what are you going to use that money to do? It's only two things, or they fall under two categories. Okay, number one are systems. Okay. Better systems, processes, etc. to allow better leverage of the existing resource. Okay? So, for example, rather than me talking and giving this presentation to one person today, I'm giving it to a lot of people all over the world, or certainly, I mean, mainly you're all over the UK, but there's a few people further afield. That's leverage. Okay? Created by a system called a, YouTube live infrastructure. Okay? But the other point of leverage is people. Right? People. I.e., name me £1 billion or even $1 billion company that does not employ lots of people. And the answer is you can't. And you might go, well, I don't want to have $1 billion company. Well, that's fine. The point is to have scalability. If you want to be an owner, if you want to have a business that can thrive without you, you need to have the infrastructure in place for that business to run. There might be a lot of automation, there might be a lot of technology, there might be a lot of systems. But even if it is heavily system and tech dependent, and all the Michael Gerber fans rush out to give the McDonald's story, okay? To give the McDonald's story, but there's still a hell of a lot of people employed by McDonald's. Right? So you need people. So what's the solution if you're a control freak? In other words, you can't grow beyond a certain size if you insist on doing everything yourself. What do you need? The solution is you need to be a multiplier. Ultimately, set a different way. You could argue that any business, there's only really one business problem. And that's not how do I grow my revenues. It's not what platform should I advertise on. The real question is not what, not how, but who. Who is the person to take my company to 5 million in revenue? Who is the person to help me break America, if that's a country that you want to branch into, okay? Who is the person to help me franchise my organization? Who is the person to help me sort out my finances? And really, at the root cause, the skill set, or one of the skill set that I think you need to develop is recruitment. How do you recruit better staff? Yeah. And I've seen you. It's already come in a few times on the message, and let us know specifics, because towards the end of this session, I'll get into tactical answering your questions one at a time. Okay, so I'm talking conceptually right now and burning through these slides, but in the closing stages of this presentation, we'll handle your questions tactically. But we've got them all on another laptop here. Just let us know what they are. What are your issues? Because people go, well, yeah, okay, of course I want great staff, but how the hell do I recruit them? I don't know how. Well, we'll talk about that. It's still tactical. That's a little bit operatory. But from an owner perspective, great. You could argue that the most important skill is recruiting. And specifically, the most important person to recruit is the MD. Right? So right now, I own a few different businesses, but I have, in particular, I've got quite an interest in the health and fitness sector. So I own a handful of different gyms or boot camp businesses, different types of fitness business. And some of those businesses, in fact, probably most of them, I haven't met all the staff. In fact, in one of those businesses, beyond the MD, I haven't met any of the staff. One of those businesses, I've never even been to the location. I don't need to, because I've got the right MD. And I trust him, it's a him in this case, I trust him to run the business. Now, we will have a lot of strategic conversations. He'll present. Just a few weeks ago, he presented the results from the last quarter to me. I mean, we chat about twice a month on the phone, and then probably once a quarter we get together face to face, because he's in a very different part of the country, opposite side of the country to me. We sit down and we go through things. But tactically, I'm not concerned with if a treadmill's broken. Okay, that's something that I trust him to do. But my job is to keep him motivated, keep him focused, make sure I recruit the right person in the first place. But how do you keep him focused, motivated, and how do you train him so that ultimately he's pulling the right levers? He knows when to let go of somebody. He knows when we need to hire somebody. He knows when to, right? But the strategic piece that sits above it, the strategic piece that fits above this is how do you recruit and manage him? How do you multiply him so you're getting better performance, right? Because if you think about it, one of the biggest cost structures in your business, for probably every business in here with a few exceptions, what's the number one biggest cost? Right, already come in. So it's payroll, right? So whether you call it staff, whether you call it employees, whether it's contractors, it's people. So if that's the investment, okay, if that's your biggest monthly investment, then how do you get a better return? How do you get better output? How do you multiply the results from that team? And again, I'm not trying to get away from grassroots level of how do you talk to them day to day, what are the metrics, what are the but strategically, conceptually, what are you doing? How do you create an infrastructure where there's a strong, healthy culture? Peter Drucker. Any of you Peter Drucker fans on the webinar? Read books like The Effective Executive. So Peter Drucker is a renowned management thinker, and he says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Just think about that. Culture, having the right culture, it eats strategy for breakfast. And I agree with him 100%. I'm a big fan of strategic thinking, and really, part of strategic thinking as an owner is saying, how do we drive the right culture? What is culture? Culture is how people behave. If you've got people, the right people that are super excited, super motivated, and super innovative, if you can create a culture, a team that does that, you know what? That'll be one particular strategy every day of the week. Because they'll be adaptive, they'll be flexible, they'll be dynamic. Okay? So how do you go from being a control freak to being a multiplier, right? We're going to talk about that more in depth. Beyond that, next biggest problem that people have is tough competition. We get caught up on, oh my God, there's a lot of downward pressure. You know, best example that I've already seen come up here once Yes, thank you, Alison. Is Amazon. Okay. Yeah, oh good, so I'll come to that one in a minute, Gabriella. So, as well, is Amazon. People go, oh, so Amazon are taking, their 15% cut or whatever they're taking. And so Amazon have become this big behemoth or monopoly, if you will. And, so not just the book industry, but the everything industry now, right? But it's saying, wow, it's really tough and margins are tight. But that's the mindset people get caught up in. What's the solution to that strategically? And this is huge. This is huge. In fact, this is one of the biggest lessons that I learned when I took one of my companies, which was actually a digital agency, taking it from $500,000 to $5 million in revenue in approximately 2 years. It's having a collaboration ecosystem. What does that mean? What it means is rather than trying to compete against everybody, how do you collaborate and work together? So one of the biggest drivers, and this is a huge strategic concept, so make sure you write this down. And if you've heard it before, let's start getting more specific, okay? Oh, excuse me, I'm just moving around, so I'm aware that you're probably seeing the top of my head now. Is who is the partner? Who's got what I want? Right, so in the context, let me give you a different example. One of my training companies, I grew significantly because I partnered with an American firm that sold marketing automation software. And I had a training company that taught marketing, okay, taught small business marketing techniques. And we partnered. They had access to large amounts of capital. And they were well connected, and we did a partnership which enabled them to get more exposure in the UK market for their software by partnering with us, and we've got access to their capital, so they sponsored the events and they help us find some big name speakers. So in a short space of time, we had CEOs of $100 million companies coming and speaking for free at our events. They introduced me to great people like Frank Kern and Ryan Dice and Jay Abraham. And I was able to create partnerships, and each of those people promoted it out to their databases and to their social media followings. And all that was caused, all those things happened because of one strategic partnership. So how do you develop collaborations, a collaboration ecosystem, so that you've got partnerships, strategic alliances that make the thing work? Even better, if you can have an ecosystem where you've got a variety of partners who derive some or all of their income from commissions that they earn from promoting or referring you, you've now created a much more solid infrastructure, different sources of getting additional clients, additional income streams. And equally, it might be that you've got a load of clients that somebody else wants to sell to, and you can take a cut. And if you get a commission, so in the example of this marketing automation software, Infusionsoft was a company, what happened was they would sell their software for the same price, but we got a commission. But that commission that was generated, so if we help sell them, I don't know, I'm making a number here, but we help them sell $1 million worth of software subscriptions, and we got a $200,000 commission, what's the cost attached to that? Zero. So it drops straight to the bottom line. One strategic partnership can make your business go 10x. I had one of my mastermind members had a little company that was doing well. Again, it was mid-six-figure range, about 600,000 pounds. It was profitable, but he was working quite hard. But he was personally making perhaps 10 grand a month personal income, so not insignificant. But he's working hard. He got one strategic partnership. In the next 12 months, he did 4 million, and over $1 million of that was net. So in terms of his income, it went from 120 grand to $1 million. 1 year. One strategic partnership. But you have to think, right? And I'm trying to be respectful, but for those saying, yeah, but where do I find those partners? I don't know. right? Like, don't get tactical too quick or dismiss it. Say, well, I don't know, so I'll give up. You get paid to think. Okay, that's why I'm a huge fan. The most important thing you can do is, as a friend of mine, Steve Bolton, says, is stand on the shoulders of giants. How can you get around smart, switched-on business owners? Just learn from them. Not just the upside, but learn from their mistakes. I'll tell you right now, you know, people often ask questions, and I can see questions coming in, talking about, asking questions about how I grew so quickly and how to do that. There is a lot of value in that. But there's probably more value from learning from the mistakes that I made that screwed it up. Right? So, anyway, moving on. Because I know people have got questions about growth and we're getting there. So, here's the point. Another problem is people have blame culture. They're always coming up with an excuse as why they can't grow. They'll say, well, I can't grow because I've got no capital. When actually, if that's the true obstacle, if that's the real issue, say if your current revenue is $500,000 and you want to be at, you know, 2 million, okay? The difference between $500,000 and 2 million is $1.5 million, but that lack of revenue, okay, is a symptom, right? And even if you say, well, I could grow that if I could get the marketing budget to spend. Okay, good. Well, if you need a $100,000 marketing budget, I was with a business owner just yesterday who's on this webinar. Actually, I saw him comment earlier, saying I just need 60 or 70 grand to be able to launch this new venture and to be able to go big, go global. Okay, that lack of 60 or 70,000 pound it's called Harry. In Harry's case, is a symptom. What's the root cause? What's the obstacle? And I would suggest in that example, the root cause, the obstacle that's preventing it from going from $500,000 to 2 million, or having that marketing spend to create that result, is the inability to have a good pitch, i.e. to be able to go and raise the money. Because the fact is, if it was somebody with Elon Musk's skill set, I mean, this is a man that's phenomenal at raising capital for his various different ventures. And it's not because it might be partly because of his name, etc. now, but in the early days, he raised it even before he was famous and known as Elon Musk. If his skills were in Harry's body, he'd go and raise the 60 or 70 grand like that. Why? Because it's a different skill set. So rather than blame culture, what do you need? You need to push the envelope. You need to get really, really clear about how can you push for new frontiers. And you're not going to get there by thinking small and being around small-minded operators. If you go around other business owners and they're all, well, I'm broke, you're broke. Oh, yeah, it's about how to have a shinier Facebook ad. You know, or it's about, oh, how do we have this different landing page? You know what? You might be able to eke out an extra 10 or 20 grand this year. But if you really want to scale, if you really want to systemize and scale your business, you need to think about how to push the envelope. And normally those strategies involve thinking much bigger. I've got interesting questions. Somebody said, this is really good advice. Thank you as a woman in business. I hope you mean you as a woman, not you're implying that I'm a woman. I feel like, you can laugh, that was quite funny. If you laugh, they're more likely to laugh. So I feel like a fraud, but it's about being comfortable in that space. I do think it's being comfortable in that space. And by the way, that's part of the challenge. When business owners grow, they often feel like a fraud. And it's that because they feel like, oh, is it that good? And I'll tell you, myself, but also having been around a lot of people in my mastermind programs. One of my mastermind members has had unbelievable results in the last year and a half. He's gone from maybe making a few $100,000 a year to making almost $1 million in profit in the last 12 months. It's phenomenal results. Okay, he's doing really, really well, and he should be I'm really proud of him, and he should feel really proud of himself. But he has moments where he feels a bit like a fraud. And the reality is that he has to get over that if he wants to grow further, right? You know, Jim Rohn, one of Tony Robbins' mentors, says that your income will seldom exceed your personal and professional development. And he's absolutely 100% correct. How many of you that are listening to me right now, you've had a year where you had a really good year? And normally, for most small business owners, is they have a really good year, and then they immediately have a bad year, and they revert to the average. And they have a good year, and they have a bad year. So they get lucky, they get unlucky. They try something that works, they do something stupid. The only way you're going to sustain it is if you've got the right skills in place. It's cause and effect. You can't have a £10 million business if that's what you want, unless you've got the skills and the mindset and skill set of a £10 million business owner. Right? You get the causes in place and the effects will take care of itself. Okay, go to often used example, but doesn't make it not true, of lottery winners. If somebody that's been penniless and broke their entire life wins the lottery, what happens in more than half of cases? Fast forward enough years, they revert to being broke. Why is that? It's because they were given the effect, i.e. a large amount of money, but they didn't have the cause, i.e. the skills to be able to protect that money or have that money make money, how to invest that money to have it be sustainable. Right? So think about this right now. In fact, tell me, what's keeping your business stuck? Tell me, where are you struggling? Where is your business tight? Where is your business paused? What is the obstacle that's preventing you from getting the growth that you want? Because it's very easy to sit and say, well, I want to have 10 million in revenue or 100 million in revenue, you know, but that's nice. That's a bit like looking in the mirror and saying, I wish I had six-pack abs. You can look in the mirror all you want, right, while you're cradling your beer belly. You can look in the mirror all you want, but if the effect is missing, i.e. the six-pack abs, so is the cause. What's the cause? Well, ultimately, it's going to be the right diet and the right exercise regime. And before the fitness police get on me, I know there are other factors as well, genetics, blah, blah, blah. But from what you can control, I think we can all agree that if your diet regime and your exercise regime aren't right or a million miles away from their need to be, you're not going to create the six-pack abs if that's something that you want. No matter how much you want it, how much you look in the mirror, the cause has to be in place. And there's going to be a lag time, right? So if you're listening to me right now and you're going, oh, Dan, I wish I'd been able to, I could exit my company for 7 figures, or I wish I could grow to this, or I wish I could build from a team of, somebody was on here saying they've got a team of 4, and I want to build up and have managers in place so I can ultimately have an MD or a general manager, and I can remove myself from the company like you. Great. I want that for you too. But the question is, what's the cause? And it's going to be a whole host of different skills. All right? So, moving on. And then I've got a couple more slides, and then we're going to get into Q&A. So keep the questions coming in. We've got a list here. We'll go through them, and we'll do them live on the end. All right? Is people get caught up in short-term gains. In other words, okay, and we talk about a lot of this in my this webinar as a kind of a teaser for the a 2-day workshop we do called Systemize and Scale. All right, so if you're liking these concepts, I'll give you the answers to your questions. I'm not going to hold anything back, but we do a full 2 days on this. Small little group. We've got a little workshop in my workspace classroom in my office. Fits a dozen people. Great, and we'll work on this with you for 2 days. A lot of businesses are so stressed cash-wise that they get caught up into having a short-term win. But really, it's kind of shooting yourself in the foot. The reason it's shooting yourself in the foot is because you need to have a long-term vision. Now, it's not mutually exclusive. I'm not saying that you shouldn't think short-term, because the fact is, if you've got no money in the bank, you need to get money in the bank. But how do you fix that? If you look at Bill Gates, so if you think of most tech companies, and by the way, if you're listening, I know some of you are tech companies, but I know a lot of you are not tech companies. Looking at the questions, need to be brave enough to go from doing done-for-you marketing to software as a service. So, Anne, you might be right. You might need to be brave enough to make that transition. But I've got a better question for you, Anne. Remind me once I've got through these last few slides kind of conceptually, and I'll answer it for you. I've got a much better question for you, because I'm not sure that that's the right question. I've got a better question which might more easily allow you to find the answers that you want. Okay, so stick with me, Anne. So back to where I was. I think you need a long-term vision, but you also need the short-term. But oftentimes, when we get caught up too much in the short-term, we never do what we need to do, so we get in a position to build for the long-term. So back to the Bill Gates story. Most software companies, their biggest cost is the programmers, right? And Bill Gates, unlike most software companies, okay, that go broke and never make it work. Why did Bill Gates become the richest man, on the planet? And Microsoft at its time was one of the biggest companies on the planet. It still is, just slightly less so now. What was one of his early goals for Microsoft? One of his earliest goals for Microsoft was having a year's worth of salaries in the bank. A year's worth of salaries in the bank. So in other words, what's your monthly payroll right now? Okay? Yeah. Good question, Helen. Yeah, we're going to talk about lack of time and finding the right staff. I'm going to suggest, Helen, that they're symptoms, not root causes. And I'll tell you how to fix that in a minute, okay? If your monthly payroll is 10 grand a month, okay, fine. Maybe if you did what Bill Gates did, he'd say, well, good, I want to have 120 grand clear in cash in the bank. Why do I want to do that? Because I want to focus on the long-term vision for building Microsoft. But of course, a lot of people would never get there, because even if they did make money, the business owner, as soon as it makes 10 grand, he'll take 10 grand. He or she will take 10 grand. And therefore, the business will have nothing. Therefore, oh, payroll's up. And then they end up taking on shitty clients that they don't like or don't want because they need to make ends meet, and you get caught on the hamster wheel. Don't do it. Okay? So that's one for now. People get in love with the result. They get obsessed by just hitting the goal. Just hitting, oh, I've got this revenue target. It's a bit like people going, oh, I want to lose weight. I want to lose this weight. Why? For a wedding. Okay, good. They get obsessed with losing the weight. They lose the weight. And then immediately, once they go to that wedding or they fit into that dress, what happens? They gain it all back. Because it's about the outcome rather than being in love with the process. Right? In other words, how can you fall in love with the company? View the company as a machine. What is the company? It's an asset. You go, I want to make $1 million in profit this year. Great, Steve. I want you to make $1 million in profit this year too. But I think if you fall in love with the process, how do you build a machine? How do you build a company that consistently churns out £83,000 a month in profit? If you can fall in love with that and your whole strategic focus becomes how do you leverage your team, your managers, your processes and your systems to be consistent in that endeavor, and you're about tweaking the process, the effect, called £83,000 a month in profit, will take care of itself. Fall in love with the cause. So Greg said, good question, can't short-term gains supplement, i.e. finance the long-term strategy? So yes, it can, Greg. You're absolutely right. But, okay, money is a means to an end. Oh yeah, so Greg's now saying you've just answered it. Yeah, money is a means to an end, and a lot of people, cash is like crack cocaine, right? In fact, what a friend of mine, an investor friend of mine, we bought and sold a lot of companies together. A guy called Jeremy says that investing in small businesses, giving cash to small business owners is like giving crack to kids. He says, it's not good for the kids, right? I don't think it's good for anybody actually, but Jeremy, but it's not good for the kids. And the reason why is capital is a means to an end. And what he's saying is that if a small business is in a position where it's desperate for cash, it's because they don't have the skills to be able to manage and invest that cash properly. So tying back to Greg, your question, it means that you stay stuck. You stay stuck in, oh, okay, you've got the cash, but then they end up doing it on something else stupid. So they never make the transition to financing the long-term strategy. They just go, oh, make that money, spend that money. Okay, make a bit more, spend a bit more, and therefore they stay stuck. They don't expand beyond it, all right? So, what else is coming in? So Alison, you're absolutely right. Alison says, bad cash flow causes you to make poor decisions. It's right. If you're too cash poor, people do all kinds of stupid things for money. Okay, so how do you fix that? Because that's a symptom. Lack of cash is a symptom of a poorly run business. Okay, and ultimately, people will sit there, okay, and they've got false ambition. They say, "Oh, I want to have this. I want to grow my company," but actually, they're all talk, no action. They probably mean it. They probably really want to have a better business, but are they prepared to do what it takes? Right? Oh, they want to have six-pack abs, but do they really? Or is it fake ambition? Are they prepared to consistently, for life, watch their diet and exercise appropriately? In other words, are they prepared to become execution-centric? How do you become obsessed with the details? How do you become obsessed with getting the project done? How do you become obsessed? How do you have the right things in place? All right. So, what are the steps? So so I'm now going to get into real tactical comments. Okay, I'm going to get into real tactical answers. So, but before I do get into those tactical answers, and by the way, keep your questions. Let us know, because pretty much for the rest of this webinar, all I'm going to do is answer your questions. So if you run out of questions, or if I run out of questions to answer, you run out of answers, right, from me. So keep asking the questions now in the chat. Keep them coming in. I know a few people asked how to grow without money, like low cost, high leverage growth strategies. I'm going to give you some of those. How do you recruit better people? I'm going to answer those. And Gabriella, to save us from scrolling, if you could create a list somehow, just to tee us up, and then they'll keep coming in. I guess that'd be good. And I'll handle as many as I can on this webinar. Okay, but here's my point. Stop looking for the easy button. Okay, like it's never just one idea that will fix it. It's actually, we said earlier about it's not the outcome, it's falling in love with the process and falling in love with innovation. Really, if you look at the true masters, if you look at the self-made billionaires, if you look at the people that have scaled up and exited, if you look at the people that have done whatever it is that you want to do, they don't have to be in your field. They've just been smart business owners. It's extraordinarily rare that inventors get rich. In fact, the exception, because people immediately come back with Dyson as an example. Dyson is an incredible inventor, but he's also a friggin' smart business person, right? And there's a hell of a lot of Dysons that you've never heard of, or Dyson equivalents that you've never heard of, because they didn't have the business skills. What you really need to know are the business skills that allow you to systemize and scale. So all the answers we're going to go to now, that we're going to get into the tactics and start throwing out quick tactical answers. And if you've asked a question, I've got a little list that's built. Gabriella's building up here next to me that I'm going to go through and give you quick answers to. But a lot of times people ask questions and it's not clear. So make sure you stay by your keyboard, because I'm probably going to ask you to elaborate a little bit more on what your question is. Okay, so I'm going to give you a taste of this, but I'm going to give you some answers. But really, the real billionaires, they're obsessed with learning. They're obsessed with innovation. They're obsessed with growth. Okay, if you want to talk about Warren Buffett, you want to talk about Michael Dell, you want to talk about, you name it. None of those guys need to work anymore. So why are they doing it? Right, why are they doing it? And it is because they love it. If you look at 9 of the top 10 richest people in the world, they're all still in their business. Now that seems counterintuitive, because this whole webinar is called Operator to Owner. Yeah, but that's the point. They operate, they're owners. What made them rich is the fact that they own the shares. The fact that they choose to continue to operate is because they want to. And that's the lesson. How do you build a business that works without you, and you continue to work in it because you want to? And that's part of the key. The cause is, how do you learn to love the business in such a way that you can really be strategic. You can work on your business. In other words, so you can systemize it and scale it. Because if you are staying purely as the operator, you're not going to be able to scale it. You're not going to be able to get to the position where you've got the money to have the staff, to have the infrastructure. Okay, if you look at 9 of the top 10 richest people in the world, they're still in the business. Warren Buffett's still making investment decisions. Now, it might be that he's got a whole team. He doesn't need to be there, and he'd still be rich, and he could retire, but he doesn't have to. The 10th person, by the way, is Bill Gates, who stayed at the top of Microsoft for a long time until eventually he gradually stepped down and said, all right, I want to spend the rest of my life figuring out how to give away $50 billion. Good for him. And if that's your ambition, I want that for you as well. But I'm going to say that he didn't get there without learning how to systemize and scale. So let's jump to your questions. Everything that we're going to talk about now is a taster of our 2-day workshop. So the Systemize and Scale workshop, let me just take a quick drink of water. The Systemize and Scale workshop, we've done this workshop. It's new. We piloted it before. I'm going to do it one more time, maybe 2, because we're going to record it and turn it into a product. So we're going to make it available online for purchase, but we're going to do, if you want to get it in person, I'm going to give you a great offer at the end of this webinar so that you can apply to get one of these spots, because we've got many times more people listening and watching us live now than we've got seats, because we're going to just do it in our local offices here in the West Midlands, where we can sit down and apply this to your business and figure out how you systemize and scale, how you go 10x, how you go from $500,000 to 5 million, or whatever it looks like for you. Okay, so it's a 2-day workshop, and we cover a whole host of different topics. We talk about the marketing, the sales side. We talk about the recruiting people side. We talk about the raising finance side. We talk about the legal side. Interesting little corollary is whatever the question that you're asking is probably the wrong question. Think about Einstein. Einstein said that you rarely, and I'm paraphrasing, but you won't solve the problem with the same level of thinking that created it. In other words, you're stuck with your business at a certain size and you're struggling to break beyond it because you're trying to solve the problem with the same level of thinking that created the problem. In other words, you're probably asking the wrong question. You need to elevate your thinking. Remember, I said it right at the start of this session, 37 slides ago, 38 slides ago, which was you get paid to think. Getting paid to do is employee stuff. Nothing wrong with having a job. And you could have a well-paid job, even if you're the owner. You're just hustling to make it work. The difference about whether you're scraping a living and making 50k profit and $500,000 profit. Okay, I've had companies that have been making 50 grand a year, and I've had the same company make $500,000 a year. Okay, profit. And I'll tell you, there ain't that much difference between them. It's tiny little details. It's slightly better strategy applied differently. Hustle alone is not going to allow you to 10x your profit and free yourself from your business. The right strategy is, the right mindset is, that's what this 2-day Systemize and Scale workshop is about. Okay, so the last thing I'll say before I go on to these questions is if you like the sound of that, okay, so there are only a dozen seats in our office. Just go on over to danbradbury.com/apply. Excuse me, that's not where you go at all. danbradbury.co.uk/apply. Go on over to danbradbury.co.uk/apply. There's not really details there because, again, this is a new thing that we're doing. We're running it as a program just to record it for a small group of people so that we help you and we can record it and turn it into a product. We won't give away any proprietary stuff with regards to your business, right? But I'll teach the content and you'll do the exercises there. Confidential stuff will be screened out, but you'll get to apply this stuff. And we're going to do it for a nominal fee. All right, so this is the best stuff about to systemize and scale your business. How do you 10x your profit over the next 12 months? And we're just going to fill all the places. It's limited because we're going to do it in our office. So there's only the seats for 12. And Gabrielle's waving fingers at me and saying that I believe that there's 4 seats left. I'm not sure that's 4 seats left or 4 seats sold, but we've got from past candidates left, she's telling me. I don't know why she's mouthing it. She's obviously paranoid about being heard in the background. If I really wanted to freak her out, I'd turn the camera, but I won't. So because we did the pilot once before, so from our existing mastermind clients, etc., who are coming to this workshop, we've got 4 seats left. So nominal fee, for the 2-day workshop of just 500 quid a ticket plus VAT. Okay, so there's no big dramatic drop down price. Get it for free. Look, if you wanna radically scale your business, come on to this workshop. It costs nothing. You know what? Let me just throw this out there, even though I haven't told my team this. If you came on to this workshop and you're not absolutely thrilled whilst you're there, just let us know. Just let us know. If you're not happy, you can have all your money back. Of all the workshops I've done in the last few years, I don't recall anybody ever asking for the money back. There might have been one or two, and in which case, yeah, I'm sure we give them the money back. If you're not happy, I don't deserve your money. But go to danbradbury.co.uk/apply in order to give us your name and details and tell us the size of your company, number of staff you've got, and we'll jump on the phone with you. Let's jump on the phone, have a quick chat to see if it's a good fit for you. If it is a good fit, great, come along. If it's not, then we'll tell you and don't come, right? And we'll tell you the dates, etc. Just go on over to danbradbury.co.uk/apply and tell us about, just fill in the quick web form, hit submit. We'll jump on the phone with you today, tomorrow, figure out whether it's a good fit for you, get one of those remaining few spaces. Again, this was a teaser just so we get, and I'm sure from the number of people that were on this, a few hundred that were on this call, that we're going to get more than a handful go over there. And first come, first served. So, assuming, of course, you're a good fit. So we'll go through the applications in the order they're received. Just go on over to danbradbury.co.uk/apply, fill in your details, and let's have a chat on the phone. And if you've got questions about the Systemize and Scale workshop, just let them know now. So I'm now going to jump into the Q&A part. All right, so this person is called Hello. So hello. So the question was, I'm getting sales inquiries, I'm getting interest, but not closing the deal. So I guess, hello, that the question is, how do I do that? Okay, good. So let me give you a few thoughts. So tell me if you've got more specifics. Okay, tell me if there's more specifics. Hello, that allow me to better answer your question. But here's the 30-second answer. People need 4 things in order to buy from you. Okay, assuming you're getting the inquiries. First of all, they need pain in the present. In other words, they need to have some problem which hurts them now. Okay, good. Sales all want is to agitate the pain, but the more pain that they're in now, the more likely they are to buy. Clarify that pain, get them clear on the pain, right? So if I was really trying to sell on this webinar, I mean, I've not checked, I've not got the screen up, but we've probably already got people applying. If you've applied, let us know, and I'll acknowledge you on the call. I'll give you a shout out. But for those, if I was trying to sell, I would focus you on what's the pain? What's the pain that you're feeling right now by not having a business systemized and scaled? What's the biggest issue that you've got? How is it holding you back? How much money is it costing you by not having a scalable business? How much money is it costing? What is it costing you personally in your personal life by you working 60, 70 hours a week, stressed out of your mind? Think about that. Right? So hello, that's the first point, is pain in the present. If they don't have that, they're not going to buy. They might be interested. Oh, I might be interested in the Systemize and Scale workshop, but I won't buy. Okay? Next one is hope toward the future. Nope. I've been told that I'd badly adjusted my screen. It takes a few seconds because it's delayed, but let me know that they're not looking at my lovely living room wall, because we're not at the office today because our internet was being a bit dodgy. So we've you're joining me in my home. We could do a cribs tour at the end. So I can't remember the point I was on about now. So pain in the present. The second is hope towards the future. Hope towards the future. In other words, if they don't think that it can be better, they won't buy. In other words, if somebody was on this webinar out of curiosity and they say, well, yeah, I'd like to scale my business, but if you were listening to this now going, I don't believe really that it can be scaled, which is very different than I don't know how to do it. If you were like, no, it's impossible to scale, they wouldn't be interested in the Systemize and Scale workshop. If, however, they thought, no, it can be scaled, I just don't know how to do it, then they may be open to coming to the Systemize and Scale workshop, right? So you've got to have pain in the present, hope towards the future. You've got to have, number 3 is faith in the promise. In other words, hello, and I'm a bit paranoid, hello, if you could tell me your actual name, that would make me feel better, is if you could, if they don't believe that you could help them, or your company, product or service can help them, then they've got the pain, and they're going to buy from somebody, but they're not going to buy from you. Right? So let's say you're on this webinar now, and hopefully, and tell me if you are, if you're going, you know what, yeah, you give me some things to think about, I love it, I'm not happy with the income that I've got right now, I'm not happy with how hard I'm having to work for my business, I believe it can have a future, I believe it can be scaled, but Dan, I'm not convinced by you. I don't like, I don't like what you're saying, or I don't like your wallpaper, right? I don't believe somebody that knows how to systemize and scale business would have that wallpaper. I don't particularly like this wallpaper either, but I've not got around to changing it. Then you're not going to buy, right? So it might be, hello, that the issue is faith in the promise, certainty of success. So our mastermind members, so we track the P&Ls of all our mastermind members, people in our kind of annual coaching programs, and the average ROI, right? Not how much extra sales they make, the average increase in profit versus their investment in the mastermind programs. Our different programs are entry-level programs, 10 grand a year, okay? Called Success Mastermind. But the average ROI on that £10,000 investment, first year, is a little over £73,000. That's the average. In other words, it's about a 7-to-1 ROI. In other words, they invest £10,000 and they get a 7 times ROI. And we're not full, but we're close to capacity on that mastermind program. But if I was trying to sell that, hello, that would be a way of getting faith in the promise. In other words, if I go, well, we do this, this, and this to help you grow your business, to get clear on your financial numbers, to get financial clarity, to get the strategic partnerships in place. Somebody might go, well, that sounds good, having strategic partnerships, having the right financial numbers. I want all that. I see that would be important. That would help me scale. Because separate side note, we haven't spoken about numbers, financials on this webinar, but if you've got no financial clarity, your chances of scaling your business successfully and sustainably are close to 0 in the long term, okay? But that's a whole different topic. Let us know if you want to know about that topic. We've got some great content. In fact, I'm going to do a masterclass on that in the next couple of weeks. Let us know, and we'll give you notice about it first if that's a topic that interests you, okay? But if somebody's on board with that, but they're not on board with me, right? Because they're not convinced that the mastermind program would work for them, then they're not going to buy. But if I can create faith in the promise by saying, look at all these people, look at all these testimonials that one of our clients last year, he's not our biggest client by far, but he won our Mastermind Member of the Year award last year. Went from 100,000 in profit, I think it was £96,000, to £460,000 in profit in a 12-month period. Okay, and that's because, well, because he did what we told him, but he worked really hard and he executed. Okay, but that's a way, hello, that might get faith in the promise. And number 4 is urgency. People need a reason to act now. Otherwise, they're convinced it can work, they're convinced, but they'll say, I'll do it later. So the reason why, if hello, I was really, really trying hard to sell the Systemize and Scale workshop, the reason why you should go to danbradbury.co.uk/apply now is because we're doing it in our offices. I'm not looking to do it on a consistent basis. Okay, so there's 12 seats. Sorry, there's not 12 seats, as Gabriel already reminded me. There's four spots left, and so we're getting applications, and we're going to choose 4 people that we think we can best help. You know, the price is only 500 quid plus VAT, and if you think about the scalability of your business, I mean, well, put it this way: you should snap my hand off, and really, that's why we say apply, because we'll chat to you, and if we don't think we can really help you, then obviously don't come, right? But for the right businesses, it's an absolute no-brainer. But you need to do it now, otherwise we'll have more applications and you'll miss out. So they're the 4 things. 4 things to think about. If you've got any other comments, hello, or you really want to tell me your name, then tell me and I'll come back to it next, all right? So the next question is from Greg, which was the question about growth with limited working capital. Good. Greg, huge about this. So a few areas that I'd encourage you to think about. Really, the question, Greg, is saying a friend of mine, he's in one of in a mastermind group that I participate in. That I'm in several different mastermind programs. This one is for mergers and acquisitions, i.e., it's a group of investors. We come together to talk about various companies that we're buying and selling. Okay, which again is like thinking like a shareholder, thinking like an owner. Okay, Greg, and one of the guys in that business, it was about 10 years ago. He sold his company for about $5.5 million, $6 million cash, sold to a VC firm. And then he started another company, which he'd never do now, but he started another company, and in the first year, he wasted a lot of money. And then he eventually figured it out, and his name is John. And I said, "What happened, John?" And he said, "The problem was, Dan, I had too much money." He said, if I bootstrapped it again, like the company that he built up and sold for $5.5 million cash, he said, I would have done better, but it didn't. And because I had lots of spare cash, I wasted a lot of it. So actually, another successful business owner I know that was on the US equivalent of Shark Tank, who I hung out with in Texas not so long ago, a guy called Damon John, speaks about the power of broke, right? It's like, how do you do it? So let me give you a few throwaway examples. Well, the first one, Greg, we already mentioned, was strategic partnerships. There's a whole host of subsets, but really strategic partnerships. In other words, who can you barter with where you've got something that they want? So in my example that I gave you earlier with the marketing automation software company is, I had got access to a lot of business owners in the UK, small business owners in the UK. They were an American company that wanted more exposure to the UK, so they wanted my audience. I wanted what they had, which is they had relationships with Ryan Dice, with Jay Abraham, with Frank Kern, with Clayton Mass, with others that I didn't have. And by partnering with them, we figured out a way to get them a load of sales of their software into the UK market. And I figured out a way to get sponsorship capital and attract these big name speakers to my stage, to my trainings in the UK, and they subsequently became good friends, many of them, and I got to build those relationships, right? So strategic partnerships is one. Affiliates is another. How do you create partners or an affiliate network where they will grow your business for you? That was covered in the collaboration ecosystem, so that they will grow your company. If you want to have another one, Greg, talk about franchising, licensing. Right, so if you talk about McDonald's, you talk about Starbucks, if you talk about a lot of the big chains, they build via franchising or licensing. Okay, and why they do that is really franchising or licensing takes your IP and allows you to use other people's money and time, the franchisee's money and time, to help you grow your brand. Does that make sense? So I had a little business a few years ago, which I didn't run. It was run by my partner at the time, as an intimate partner, and she built a business that was making £30,000 or £40,000 a year profit, and she was only working a day a week in this business. It was a great little lifestyle business, and she wanted to grow it, but she didn't want to work harder because we had young kids. I said, great, let's license it. So we took that idea and we sold the licenses. In other words, we showed other people, and this was focused specifically on the working mums market, and we showed other working mums how they could create a £30,000, £40,000 income working a day a week. And we ended up with 30-ish, 32 I think, locations across the UK of these different businesses where they paid us an initial kind of license fee and an initial kind of setup training fee and an ongoing monthly license fee. Great. And that was a way, Greg, that we got significant scalability because we grew the brand, we grew the awareness, we grew the income streams. So there's 3 off the top of my head. Okay, right, I've got 10 minutes to go, so I better speed up. So Helen asks, lack of time finding the right staff. So, lack of time. All right, so here's a quick one, Anne. Pareto's law. If I asked everybody on this webinar how many hours you work in a week, the average answer I get from business owners is 50 to 60 hours a week. Okay? Tell me if you think that's true. I'd be curious to know, how many hours do you work in a week at the moment? How many hours do you work on a typical week? Or last week? But then the follow-up question is much more potent. Answer this honestly. Okay? Answer this honestly. And we talk about this. We've got an exercise around this in the Systemize and Scale workshop. Okay? What percentage of that time was spent on the highest and best value activities? In other words, how many hours last week were you truly productive? Tell me right now. And for most people, the answer is 5 to 10. In other words, 10 to 20% of their time is spent on the most important things. 80% is firefighting. The question, Helen, is how do you eliminate that time, that wasted time? Because if you think about it, a lot of people, they'll attend things like this and they get great ideas. But then when they go back to their regular business, they get caught up. They get caught up, so they never do the things that need to get done. Which, by the way, is why you should consider going to trainings, workshops like the Systemize and Scale workshop. Because it's buying yourself the headspace, time out of the business to work on the business. Okay, and I've got a process. We've got a little system we call the EAT system that allows you to figure out, if I ask you to just work more hours, most people can't do that. Nobody's got more time. But the real question, Helen, is how do you take some of that wasted time? And I can show just about any business owner how to free up 10 hours a week from next week. Now, but really it's Pareto's principle. The specifics behind that, sorry to sound pluggy, but I'm not sorry, actually. Look, come and do the process. I mean, if I could save you 10 hours a week, I mean, that would be worth 2 days and £500 to come to the Systemize and Scale workshop by itself. Go to danbradbury.co.uk/apply and figure it out right now. All right, so, oh yeah, the right staff bit. So the right staff bit is a one-liner to think about, as that is deal flow. Right? How do most small business owners hire staff? They get desperate, overloaded, then they throw together a shitty job ad, put it on one site. They only get 3 applicants to their shitty job ads because in their head they have a mindset that says, well, there's nobody in our area that would take that job for that money. So, so they get 3 applicants. They invite them all along to interview. One of the applicants doesn't show up. One of them shows up drunk. So they end up hiring the other one. Right? So in other words, your strategy for recruitment is hire the least shitty candidate. Then they wonder why they have employee issues. So how do you fix that? What's the root cause? Well, I think if you had 100 people apply for the job rather than 3, your chances of getting a good candidate are 33 times higher. So how do you get 100 to apply? Well, think about how do you market and sell the job? How do you make it compelling? How do you make it so people want to work for your company? Well, I'm a small business. Why would they want to work for me? I don't know. Maybe that's why you've got the problem. You've got to think about it and say, well, all right, it might be a small company, but that means they get to be a big fish. If they were in a giant corporation, they would just get lost. It'd be a much more slow progression. They can progress quickly. They can be, when I was 21, 22, I was in control of a marketing budget of £30,000 a month. I could never have got there when I really had no experience. I could never have got there if I was in a big corporation. I got there because I was working for a tiny small business. It's the only job that I ever had, but it allowed me to grow and ultimately start my own company and manage my own £20,000 or £30,000 a month advertising budget back then. Right? So how do you sell that job and invite lots of applicants? Okay. Now there's tactics around which platforms, and we can cover all that on the Systemize and Scale workshop. Go to danbradbury.co.uk/apply to find out more. All right. Next question is from Anne. Oh, so Anne was talking about. Anne's reminding me that I would ask her a better question. So Anne, you said you need to be brave enough to go from done for you to software as a service. Okay. So the reason why I said there might be a better question, Anne, is That's tactical. So if the question was, how do I go from done for you to SaaS? That assumes that going from done for you to SaaS is the right answer. And I don't know, Anne. Tell me, jump on and ask, and I'll engage with you if we can once we've done the other questions as well. Is the reason why you want to go for done for you to SaaS is because you have a belief that says, with SaaS I can scale it. With SaaS, that's software as a service for those that don't know, which typically will be charged a monthly fee. It's hosted in the cloud or whatever. SaaS, I can make some money. Done for you is hard. It's painful. And I would tell you that, let's say that Anne's goal is to make $1 million a year net in a business that's not dependent upon her. I could, off the top of my head, give you personal introductions to, I don't know, three. I've got three off the top of my head. People that are in my network, specifically in that example, 2 of those 3 are in my mastermind group that are making 7 figures with done for you businesses, and they're not stressed. Why are they not stressed, Dan? And the reason is because if the thing that why people hate done for you is because you get pulled into client day to day all the time, good. Well, that's a different problem. Removing yourself from the day to day, having good enough account managers to show you how to manage all that stuff is a very different. But equally, doing SaaS might be the right thing. Okay? So the question, I'd encourage you to think about a better question, and would be, first, what is it you want? Where are you now? Where is it that you want to be? So I'm at 100,000 profit. I want to have $1 million. But the obstacle is, I've got all these really demanding clients and I get caught up in all these clients. Well, good. It might be, how do I get good enough staff so I just don't have to deal with the clients? It might be, how do I get better quality clients so they don't bitch and whine and moan? I tend to find people that pay more money are actually better, easier clients to work with. Or it might be a different business model. I don't know which one it is, but you're asking a tactical question, and I encourage you to think bigger, strategic. We do a lot more on that at the Systemize and Scale workshop. Good, thank you. Yeah, well done, Greg. So Greg just said, great webinar. I need a big mind shift. Just applied. Good. So Greg, we'll jump on the phone with you later today or tomorrow and find out if it's a good fit for you. If it is, we'd love to have you. All right. So this is from Im. So I don't know who Im is, but hi Im. I am. And sorry, forgive me. I've got nobody here to keep any kind of social etiquette, and Gabriella's paranoid about speaking apparently. So she's not here to tell me to shut up. So how's that IPO in the next 5 years? Good. You know what? Can I do this in a sentence because it's very complex? So a good friend of mine has listed multiple companies on the stock market. I've sold to a listed company, but I haven't taken a company from scratch and listed that entity by itself. But I do know a lot about the process. And I've got another friend who's actually going through that process of listing right now. The tactics about how do you actually get it listed and how do you get it registered, you know, with the SEC or the equivalents and the relevant bodies and all that kind of stuff, it's tactical. Basically, you need enough money and you need to go to enough lawyers that specialize in investment bankers and all that kind of stuff. But really, the only reason why doing that would make sense is if you've got a company of enough size and scope. And really, you're going to be talking about at least $500,000 of EBIT in a business that's not dependent upon you. And I hate to be overly obvious, but that's why you need to come to the Systemize and Scale workshop. To be clear, for Greg or whoever else, you can come to the workshop even if you don't need it, even if you're not looking to have an IPO. But really what this workshop is about is how do you build a company that is valuable? How do you build a company of size and scale that's valuable, that's not dependent upon you, which means that you could sell it to an investor, you could sell it to a VC firm, you could sell it to a competitor, or you could float it on the stock market. Or, because why do you want to float it on the stock market? People go, well, to make money. Well, if you had a company that's making you 7 figures net, like we've got, I'm not going to say it's like the entire mastermind group because that wouldn't be true, but for some of our mastermind members, that's exactly what they've got. They're producing 7 figures profit in a business that's relatively or entirely non-them dependent. why would you sell it? Right? If the reason you sell it is you get a big lump of cash, well, good. Do you want a big? Do you want to get 5 or 10 million in cash, or would you rather have $1 million a year and still own the asset, the company that produces 5 or 10 million? Okay. Thank you. They haven't changed the name. They're still called Hello, but thank you, Hello. Thank you for the compliment. All right. Next question. All right. So we're running out of time now, guys. But I'll try and put in the last couple of questions. Throw them in quick. Now, if you've got any burning questions before we wrap up, I agree. Someone said there's never a get rich quick fix. You have to be there for the long term. Have to get out of it first and then get back in and enjoy it. How do you do that? All right, good. So, without being too self-serving, the answer is go to danbradbury.co.uk/apply. Oh, somebody who's already coming to the workshop. Great. So I look forward to seeing you. Oh, it's Alison. So yeah, Alison, look forward to seeing you at the workshop. How do you do that? Well, all will be revealed at the Systemize and Scale workshop. But let me be fair. How do you? You don't get out and get back in. Okay. What you're going to do is you're going to figure out how to spend more time being strategic and less time operational. And it's not a get-rich-quick thing. There are 6 key parts to it. And if you go and apply, so I know Alison, you've applied, but for other people, if you go and apply, danbradbury.co.uk/apply, we'll talk to you about the things that you're going to cover in the workshop and how it will help you so that you can build a business for the long term. Okay? Because even though I'm saying it is for the long term, you can and will. I'm going to show you in the workshop one example that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to show you how to free up 10 or 20 hours a week straight away. Okay, with our EAT system, I'm going to show you that in the workshop, which will immediately give you time freed up to work on the business or time freed up just to enjoy it. And actually, I'm going to suggest that if you do that, the business will start being more profitable. Okay. What else was there? So Patch, so Patch is working 72 hours a week. Patch, if you want to work 72 hours a week, I'm happy for you. I'm not going to lie to everybody on here and say I'm working 5 hours a week. I'm not. I'm probably knocking down 50 hours a week at the moment. But there's a difference. I'm not unhappy with that. At that stage of my life, I'm perfectly happy at that, and because I'm happy with the time, because I still get time with my family. I take holidays, time with my kids, etc. But I'm also getting an ROI. It's relative, of course. I'm not saying you want what I have, but if you're working 72 hours a week and you're building the next Facebook, you might be happy. But assuming, and your question or comment implies, Patch, that you're doing too much, just go here and apply and let's chat with you on the phone. Patch, I don't actually honestly know whether we're recording this, which is another question that was asked. I believe we are recording it, but my team do that. I try not to do the tactical things. So I think that we're recording it, but I'm not sure whether we're going to release the recording or not. So Patch, the interim step is, look, let's just have a chat on the phone, Patch. We'll happily have a bit of a recap. Go to danbradbury.co.uk and apply. And we'll talk to you about the Systemize and Scale workshop. Thank you, and thank you for enjoying what you've got. Am I doing any more of these, please? And the answer is maybe. So we're going to do one in the next few weeks about more about the financial side. Thinking like an investor. For those of you that are Robert Kiyosaki fans, I think people need to be financially literate when it comes to business. If you think about it, paraphrase Warren Buffett. If you can't read the scoreboard, you don't know the score. And I think most business owners have no idea how to read the 3 scorecards. They don't understand the P&L, or it's not up to date and it's not accurate. They don't understand the balance sheet, and they don't understand the statement of cash flow. And if you don't understand that's like breathing, heart rate, and brain function. If any one of those 3 is wrong, it can kill you. So I think you need to know how to read whether or not you're breathing, whether or not your heart's beating, and whether or not your brain's functioning in your business, and how to optimize those if you've got any chance of scaling. So that's going to be on another webinar, another kind of live masterclass we'll do in the next few weeks. But we also do it in more depth in the Systemize and Scale workshop. go on over to danbradbury.co.uk/apply. Oh, interesting one from Ben. Who's better at selling your product, you or your customers? So a little bit cryptic, Ben. It kind of feels like you're trying to entrap me, maybe. But ultimately, I believe Walt Disney, who said that clean bathrooms is the best marketing. And what he meant by that was, really, if you had clean bathrooms, what he really meant was, if you created a great experience for your customers, they become your marketing force. They become your sales force because they go home and they rave about it. They rave about it and they tell people. You know, whilst all my businesses do different advertising, you know, many of them advertise on Facebook, many of them do a whole host of different types of advertising, this business included, because that allows you to perhaps do even more of it. Really, good marketing won't cover up for a shitty product, shitty client experience, okay? Because ultimately, great marketing might be, in today's social media laden age, you just have to go and Google it. You just have to go and talk to people. You have to talk to clients. You know, I wouldn't want somebody to sign up for one of our annual mastermind programs unless they were categorically convinced it was right for them. And the easiest way, tying back to somebody's question earlier, to create faith in the promise, who's more likely to buy? Somebody that I've given a big pitch as to how, you know, we get our guys a 7-to-1 ROI. You know, spend about £10,000 with us, and you're going to make an extra £70,000 profit in the next 12 months on average. You know, that's nice, and that's true. But who's more likely? Somebody that's just heard me say that, or somebody who's had their friend? So if let's say Ben's got a friend called Dave. If your friend Dave came to you and said, wow, I've been on this program for 12 months now, and you know what? I've made an extra 100 grand. You know, I referenced somebody earlier, and I've not asked, and since I've revealed his specific profit figures, I'm not going to give you his name. But, you know, if you're a serious prospect, we would happily connect you with this mastermind client of ours. You know, and whose profit went from less than 100 grand, just under 100 grand, to almost 500,000. So it went from 96, I think, to 460,000 in a year. That was the improvement in profit in a year. You know, if that guy, let's say he was called Dave, if that guy was your friend and said, wow, I invested in this program and I made an extra, 350, whatever it is, 400,000 in profit in a year. This is the best thing that I've ever done. You should do it. Who's more likely to sign up? Somebody that this is their first exposure to me and they've heard me make this big claim versus someone who's best friend. Thank you, Ben. Hope you apply. Somebody whose best friend has told them that. Obviously, the referral. Okay? And by the way, that's one of the things that we'll talk about in the Systemize and Scale workshop. You know, most small businesses get business via word of mouth. That's the downside of being a webinar at my house. Somebody rings the doorbell. Most business owners get word of mouth referrals, but do you have a process to get more word of mouth referrals? Do you have a system in place to allow you to scale with word of mouth referrals? All right, guys, that's it for this webinar. So get on over to apply for the Systemize and Scale workshop at danbradbury.co.uk/apply. That is it for today. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.